leads us on quite nicely and I'm glad we haven't spoken about this in the last 17 episodes that I've been trying to shoehorn it in because it actually fits really nicely now. So talking about coaching and environments, allowing players to thrive within certain environments. So the case in point at the minute is Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes, or AKA Basball. How much of an effect do we think the environment has on the players and their ability to play to the best of their ability within it? So obviously KP was brilliant, but he's a flawed personality. There was the text scandal, wasn't there, in the South African Assembly? Do we think that within this current environment that KP could have been even better than he was? And do we think that carries across? Obviously, we've seen the England side come on to do so well. How much do we put that down to the environment that they're now working within? And is this now something where coaches internationally are going to have to really look at changing their style of work? Leadership styles. Look at Justin Langer. I don't know if you've watched the test. Me and Lisa binge watched it. Like, obviously, that all solo parts of him off the back of winning the Ashes and in the World Cup. Yeah, there you go. A 6-month extension. How about Swivel? Do we think that the coaching role is now changing? No.
Yes, massively. I mean, I think back in the day before mental health, before mental well-being was important to men. We spoke to a few people on the podcast where I think it was Simon who said if he had something that was going on and some demons that was going on in his head, he wouldn't tell anyone about it because the blokes would pull the piss out of him. And I don't think that you can thrive in that sort of environment. I think I even mentioned on one of the Australia tests, I think the captain at the time walked down to the guy at fine leg and said, if you don't start fielding properly, I'm never going to allow you back onto a cricket field again. So this Alan Border, yeah, saying it to one of his bowlers. This iron fist rule was something that I think people saw from Australia and then tried to create their own versions of the copy. And it was interesting. I mean, you often hear about Michael Atherton. He had a similar approach. He was very closed off. And he wishes he was slightly different. I've heard it in interviews where he talks about he wish he could have done things so differently and been a bit more open and understand what makes people tick, because it would have been a better environment for people to thrive in. So I think, unfortunately, people saw something that worked in Australia, try to copy it. And then I think now we're getting to that stage where people are understanding that. And again, maybe it's come from the corporate world, because we've seen that change in the corporate world too. I don't know about you guys, but the autonomy to be able to, ask for forgiveness instead of permission in most of your day-to-day routine is massively important. Depends what role you're in. Obviously, if you're in medical,
do that in the husband role quite.
Well, there you go. But yeah, look, I think there's a lot more autonomy that goes on, and if you're given that sort of leeway to be creative and to be slightly different, that's where your people succeed more often than not. So, yeah.
Steve Smith's very interesting. Having watched the test, like him and Marnus are obviously very close, and it's almost like the role reversal of Switch. Like they refer to Marnus having come in and been very much the junior partner, whereas we now see him as being very much the kind of leader of that friendship. But Steve Smith, or both of them to an extent, they just kind of let him get on with it. And you look at the transformation in Steve Smith since he came over in 2009, I think it was, Robbo, wasn't it? To where he is now, and he's now one of the greats of the game. I don't think anybody can argue that. But they just let him paddle his own canoe, really. He obviously fits in within the team and the team environment and what have you, and he's obviously very well liked. But in terms of how he prepares and stuff, and these little quirks and this, you can carry on, mate. You crack on as long as you do what we need you to do. Going back to the KP thing, do you think that he could have been even better in today's England environment than he was, where he probably at times felt kind of shackled a little bit, for want of a better expression?
Well, if you look at everything he was asking for, it's not what the players have got. So, you can't say what he was after and what he wanted to do and how he was wrong, because the ECB have now done it and allowed players to go away and earn money here and there and kind of manage themselves to a certain extent. I think on the coaching thing, it's massive. We had not this discussion, but when we were talking about who the New England coach was going to be, and we were talking about the link between coach and captain and then the players. I think there's a time and a place for every type of coaching. I think the good coaches are the ones that know how to be and when to introduce it's a bit like old school thing. Like, yeah, you have a bollock in here, or do you give the guy a pat on the back? Like there used to be the two options, and it was about knowing when to do that with certain people and how to do it and whatever. Whereas I think now it's, do you give the guys autonomy, and how much autonomy do you give them, and giving them enough road to let them free, but not too much to hang themselves with, and all this kind of this people management side of things. And I think it works. You look at Graham Smith, for example. Graham Smith was very much the kind of taskmaster type of captain. But what he had was 10 or 11 players around him who followed that. You look at Andrew Strauss, for example, and I know that the KP thing kind of started under Andrew Strauss, went on to Alistair Cook. But under Andrew Strauss, England were the best test team in the world. So did it work? Arguably, was KP a good player to start off with within that? I mean, you look at how he was under Michael Vaughan, and he was brilliant. Now, did he change? Or is Vaughan that different to Strauss and Cook? I don't know. We will never know. But I think it's about finding the right balance and the right people to fill the positions. And I think that occurs in every walk of life, in every aspect of life. You see people who play cricket now that definitely wouldn't have been a professional cricketer 20 years ago because they were after different things. They wanted different types of players. You saw people who weren't professional cricketers 20 years ago. We've all played with some unbelievable cricketers who, just because of maybe it was an attitude thing, or maybe it was they tried to bash it, or they tried to bowl dot balls as opposed to someone who wanted to run in and bowl wicket balls all the time. And different people wanted different roles. I think the biggest thing that applies in all of it is communication, honesty. And because there are some players, like you look at KP and Steve Smith, for example. So Steve Smith, they'll just go, right, off you go. You go out and net when you want. You net as much or as little as you want. Make sure you're ready for the game. Whereas a young player coming back in, let's say a Cameron Bancroft, let's go back to that type of situation where you have David Warner, Stephen Smith and Cameron Bancroft. Someone that's very impressionable, very malleable, and you've got two blokes there that are senior players that are told to go and do it their way and do what they want. Now, coach, and this is one of the things where Justin Langer and Darren Lehman at the time maybe got things wrong, was they should have probably gone up to Cameron Bancroft and gone, look, be your own person. Make sure, because senior players who are doing that can have massive influence, but it's all about open and honest communication and telling. Sometimes when a guy comes into a team, he needs telling a little bit. No, you can't do what they're doing. You haven't got the clout. You haven't got the fun. You're a success. So you need that. Yes, it needs to be done in an environment where, and we don't know in this England environment, whether people like Ben Stokes and Josh Butler just get asked to whack balls and that's it. And then whether a Ben Duckett is, right, is he working in nets constantly? We've seen a standard of fitness that Ollie Robinson's improved. All these guys have improved. So I think it's a balance. It's getting the right people at the right place at the right time. And a coulda, woulda, shoulda kind of question is always a difficult one. Comparing eras, comparing times. It's not an unfair question, but it's kind of, Mike Atherton saying, oh, I wish I'd have done it this way. Yeah, but you didn't, because we were shite.
Yeah, fair.
We were so bad. The players under his command weren't good enough. So did he have to do things that way? Yeah, he probably didn't need to run shit on the ball in South Africa, but did he have to do things that way? Probably. So I don't know.
Well, there we go. It turns out none of us know, which is a pretty popular theme on this podcast. We have questions never.
Yeah. Here's a question. What do you think of his commentary on the SA20? KP's, that is. That's something you can factually have an opinion on.
I really like him. I think he's got a brilliant knowledge of the game. I find him quite engaging. And I just think he knows a great deal about the game. But people didn't used to like Warney at times because of his commentary. I always loved listening to him just because it's funny when my mum and dad, when they watch the cricket, they're not a big fan of obviously Rob Key. Now he's obviously moved roles now. He's not with Sky anymore. And they're not a big fan of Mark Butcher because they're saying that they go too in depth about cricket and the tactical side of it and this and the other. I said, but that's what I live for. That's what I watch for because that's the stuff that's the bit that I really want. And so I think in terms of opinionated stuff like that, it's horses for courses, isn't it? But I think the amount of knowledge that KP's got, yes, he's divisive. Yes, you either love him or you hate him. Personally, I'm a KP fan and I like his commentary and I like the insight that he can impart whilst on comms. That's my personal view.
Robert?
I agree. I think he's a very good commentator. And I think what a lot of people don't or didn't see about KP when he was a player was how hard he worked. I think I might have mentioned this before on the podcast, when people didn't see the fact that he was always the first one at nets. He was always coming up to the people who were helping out around it. Can you throw me ball? Can you do this? Can you do that? What do you think to this? How can I do? Like, he was asking constant questions, and that led to, he's done for me one of the best, the Sky Sports, when they do like a coaching session.
Open zone type thing.
Yeah, like that type of thing. He did one of the best on it, because it was no frills, no guff. The two best ones that I've ever seen were him and Brendan McCullum. And they just make it. I think some people, and this is where I may have a bit of an issue with someone like Mark Butcher on commentary, I think they overcomplicate it. And I think a lot of people, for me, overcomplicate the game. I think the game's quite simple, made very difficult by people that play it. And I think what you have in KP is someone that's, yes, he was very talented, but he worked very hard, and he worked very hard on few things that made the game simple for him. And I think that's what comes across in his commentary when he starts talking about Brevis, and when he starts talking about all the guys and what they're doing. And then his knowledge of situations and what the batter should be doing and that type of stuff. For me, if I was a kid listening to that, how can you not go, all right, okay. How can you not? Normally, you'd only get that by playing with these guys, because if you're batting at the other end from a senior pro, you'll see it. And we've all played a lot of cricket. We've been in situations where a young lad comes in and it's a situation that we might be more comfortable with and they think's dramatic, but you can sit and coach them through it and take them through it. I think he's basically giving free coaching clinics every time, because he's saying, this is what the batter should be doing. This is what he should be looking for. This is how it might be. What is he expecting the bowler to bowl? Look at the field. This is how he's expecting to do it. I watched the NFL, and Tony Romo is on commentary in the NFL, and he's calling the play, what's going to happen, where person's going to run before the play happens. And for me, that's brilliant. I love that. I can understand why people don't, like Jono says. I can understand why people don't, but for me, I love it. And if I was a young cricketer, if I had an 11, 12-year-old lad, and Kevin Peterson was on commentary, and with AB de Villiers, I mean, they did a stint the other day, and it was absolutely incredible. I mean, the ironic thing was the standard of cricket going off at the time was not flat. But the way that they were talking about it was actually in that game when Cape Town were getting the spinners, they were talking about what shots they should be playing, where they should be looking to score, how this kind of works. And there you're thinking, hang on a minute, you've got two of the guys, two of the best ever to do it in short format cricket, giving a free coaching clinic to anyone watching that game, how it should be done.